start. Good morning, students. Today we are starting with another chemotherapy topic, that is drug use for tuberculosis. Regarding exam point of view, this is very important chapter. Many questions can come, including the SMR question and short notes. So coming to introduction, what is tuberculosis? This is a common and often deadly infectious disease caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis in humans. Most common, usually it attacks the lungs, and also it can affect the other body parts, which is called as miliary tuberculosis. The classical symptoms will be chronic cough with blood tint sputum, fever, night sweats, and weight loss. Now coming to main pharmacology part of tuberculosis, that is anti-tubercular drugs. The anti-tubercular drugs will be divided into two types, that is first line drugs and second line drugs. All the first line drugs will have high anti-tubercular efficacy and they have low toxicity, and these are the drugs which is most commonly used in our routine clinical practice. Second line drugs will have low anti-tubercular efficacy and they have all high toxic profile, and they are used only in the special circumstances, not given in the routine clinical practice. Now coming to the drugs. Okay, the first line drugs includes HRZD, that is isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. Remember the first line drugs, this has become overlap. So these are the first line drugs. Okay, HRZE, that is isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. The first line supplemental drugs will be streptomycin. Okay, this drug is given only in the parenteral preparation, streptomycin. The second line drugs include ethonamide, cycloserine, para-amino-salicylic acid, kanamycin, amikacin, capromycin, and then rifabutin and rifapentin. Okay, these are the second line drugs which includes ethonamide, cycloserine, para-amino-salicylic acid, kanamycin, amikacin, capromycin, and rifabutin or rifapentin. These are the second line drugs. So in this, all drugs will be given orally except the aminoglycosides, that is kanamycin, amikacin, and capromycin. These are the three drugs which are given only in the injectable form. They cannot be given in the oral form, as these are the aminoglycosides and they have high molecular weight compound. These are the high molecular weight compounds. Similarly here, these are the first line oral drugs, and first line supplemental drugs streptomycin is also given only in the parenteral route, because this is also aminoglycoside and it is high molecular weight. The newer anti-TB drugs will be fluoroquinolone group, that is ciprofloxacin and ofloxacin. Then macrolides, okay, that is azithromycin, clarithromycin. Then linezolid, bedaquiline, and dilamanid. These are the newer anti-TB drugs. Now come to the individual drugs. The alternate group also has been mentioned in your books. This is the alternate group classification of anti-TB drugs. So the group 1 includes first line drugs which are given only oral, that is HRZE, isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. So these are given only in the oral route, that is HRZE. Group 2 is the injectable form, that is streptomycin, amikacin, kanamycin, capromycin. These are the aminoglycosides group and these are the high molecular weight quaternary compounds. So we cannot give through oral and we have to give only in the injectable form, that is streptomycin, amikacin, kanamycin, capromycin. So streptomycin is the first line supplemental drug, which I already told. first line supplemental drug, and these are the second line drugs. Group 3 is fluoroquinolones, that is ofloxacin, levofloxacin, moxifloxacin, and ciprofloxacin. These are all the fluoroquinolone groups. Then group 5 comes your second line oral. Okay, second line oral route, that is ethronamide, cycloserine, and para-amino salicylic acid. These are the second line anti-TB drugs given through oral route. Ethronamide, cycloserine, para-amino salicylic acid. Group 5 is the drugs, that is the newer drugs, and their efficacy is still unclear. That includes clarithromycin, linezolid, clofazimine, amoxicillin, imipenem, cilastatin. Okay, so group 1 is first line oral drugs, group 2 is the injectable drugs, group 3 is only fluoroquinolones, and group 4 is the second line oral drugs, and group 5 is the newer drugs with unclear efficacy. This is a classification which has been recently introduced in your Tripathi 8 edition. Please go through it. Now coming to the mechanism of the first line drugs. See, this is the bacterial cell wall. Bacterial cell wall, which is composed of the mycolic acid. Mycolic acid is nothing but the oxylipids, otherwise called as peptidoglycans, which forms the essential component of the bacterial cell wall. Okay, the other components which forms the bacterial cell wall includes your arabinogalactan molecule. Okay, arabinogalactan. So the first line drug is isoniazid. So what is isoniazid? This was discovered in 1952, and the main mechanism, it inhibits the cell wall synthesis. How? By blocking the synthesis of mycolic acid, which is nothing but a oxylipid peptidoglycan, which forms the essential component of a bacterial cell wall. So it inhibits the cell wall synthesis by inhibiting the synthesis of mycolic acid. Next comes your ethambutol. This also inhibits the cell wall synthesis, but it does not have action on mycolic acid. It acts, that is, it inhibits the synthesis of arabinogalactan, which is also an essential component of bacterial cell wall. So it inhibits the synthesis of arabinogalactan, and thus it inhibits the cell wall synthesis. So H over then R. Okay, before H, R, Z, D. Remember this sequence. In that you can remember the mechanism. So H is isoniazid, R is rifampicin or rifampin. Both are same. Rifampin or rifampicin. So it inhibits the RNA synthesis. How? By inhibiting the enzyme, that is a DNA dependent RNA polymerase enzyme. As we all know, there is an enzyme that is which helps in the synthesis of RNA, that is DNA dependent RNA polymerase enzyme. So it inhibits this enzyme RNA polymerase. As a result, there will be no synthesis of mRNA, and that inhibits the DNA poly transcription and translation. Then next to HR, then Z is pyrizinamide. So it inhibits mostly the energy metabolism. It interferes with the energy metabolism of the bacterial enzyme. That is, it inhibits the ATP synthesis. Usually through this ATP, the bacteria generates the energy for its survival. So it inhibits the ATP synthesis, and it disrupts the energy metabolism of the bacteria. As a result, there is a death of bacteria. So H, R, Z, then E. Ethambutol, it inhibits the arabinogalactan synthesis, and so it inhibits the cell wall synthesis. So remember the mechanism of each drug. Isoniazid blocks the synthesis of mycolic acid. R, rifampin or rifampicin, they inhibit the DNA dependent RNA polymerase enzyme and inhibits the synthesis of mRNA. Next comes HRZ, pyrizinamide. Mostly it interferes with the energy metabolism by inhibiting the ATP synthesis. And E is ethambutol, which also inhibits the cell wall synthesis by inhibiting the arabinogalactan synthesis. So first drug is isoniazid. It is an essential component of all anti-tubercular treatment regimen, and it is both it is a tuberculocidal, that is bactericidal, that is it kills the first multiplying organism. The quiescent bacilli remains inhibited, that is the bacilli which are in inactive state or dormant state, that remains inhibited. The first multiplying bacilli will be killed, and it acts both intracellular and extracellular, and it can act both in acidic medium and basic medium, that is they can also act in the phagocytes and macrophages. Then next is, I'm sorry, it is overlapping. Mechanism, it causes inhibition of mycolic acid synthesis. So usually this mycolic acid synthesis is coded by two genes, that is INHA and KASA gene. Okay, and that helps in synthesis of fatty acid synthesis, and that further helps in synthesis of mycolic acid, which forms as essential component of a mycobacterial cell wall. So what does, before that, remember isoniazid is a prodrug. Okay, it is a prodrug, so it has to be get converted to its active metabolite, and usually it gets converted by the enzyme catalase peroxidase. Catalase peroxidase enzyme, and that so first to isoniazid, when you take it, gets converted to its active metabolite by catalase peroxidase, and they go and interact with the INHA gene, which encodes the fatty acid synthesis and helps in formation of mycolic acid. So it will go and bind with this INHA gene and inhibit the synthesis of mycolic acid. Okay, inhibits the mycolic acid synthesis. So this is a bacterial cell wall. It is having the surface glycolipid. This is a narrow porine channel, mycolic acid. The next layer is arabinogalactan, then peptidoglycan, then lipid bilayer. These all are the essential component of bacterial cell wall. So isoniazid inhibits this mycolic acid, and ethambutol inhibits this arabinogalactan. Then why does some tubercle bacilli will have isoniazid resistance? Why so? The mechanism is either there is a mutation of in catalase peroxidase enzyme, that is CAPT gene. So whenever there is a mutation in catalase peroxidase enzyme, the isoniazid will not get converted to its active form. If you remember, isoniazid is a prodrug. It gets converted to its active form by catalase peroxidase. So if there is a mutation in this enzyme, you will not get an active INHA, and so the drug will not act. And direct mutation in INHA gene and CASA gene will inhibit the isoniazid to interact with this gene and inhibit mycolic acid synthesis. Okay, then isoniazid pharmacokinetics, it is orally absorbed, and then it gets it is orally absorbed, and coming to distribution, it gets distributed in all the fluids, that is pleural fluid, peritoneal fluid. Only it will not cross the blood-brain barrier. But if your meninges are inflamed, then this drug can easily cross the CSF barrier. Then it is metabolized in the liver by the enzyme N-acetyltransferase 2. Okay, it undergoes N-acetylation process, which is a phase 2 conjugation reaction, and by the enzyme N-acetyltransferase 2, it gets metabolized and gets excreted in the urine. So the main you have to remember in this metabolism is there is a genetic polymorphism in the rate of the acetylation of isoniazid. Okay, this is a very important question regarding your exam point of view. That is genetic polymorphism of isoniazid. Means some people, they will have genetic polymorphism in this rate of acetylation process. That is, it is an autosomal recessive trait. Okay, so there is a genetic polymorphism. So some people, 30 to 40% of the Indians will be fast acetylator, and most majority of the Indians, that is 60 to 70%, will be the slow acetylator. So in 32% of Indians, This drug undergoes fast acetylation process. So the drug will undergo fast metabolism. So the drug remaining in our blood will be less. So plasma half-life period is only 1 hour in those cases. Whereas 60 to 70% of the Indians, majority of the Indians undergo slow acetylation. That is, the drug will be undergoing slow metabolism. As a result, the drug remain in our body for longer period. That is, plasma half-life is about 3 hours. Okay. In fast acetylation, the plasma half-life is about 1 hour. In slow acetylation, the plasma half-life is about 3 hours. Now coming to the adverse effect of isoniazid, the most common adverse effect will be peripheral neuritis, which is mostly common with the slow acetylation. Okay, so majority of us is having slow acetylation, 60 to 70% of Indians. So in Indians, majority will complain of peripheral neuritis. So why there is peripheral neuritis? Mostly peripheral neuritis occurs because of deficiency of vitamin B6. So isoniazid induced increased excretion of pyridoxine in the urine, that is vitamin B6 level will be excreted in the urine and there will be deficiency of pyridoxine. And second, the accumulated isoniazid, as it is a slow acetylation process, there is slow metabolism of isoniazid. So more isoniazid remains in our body. So that accumulated isoniazid inhibits pyridoxine kinase enzyme, which converts pyridoxine to its active metabolite, active form, that is pyridoxal phosphate. So it inhibits pyridoxine kinase, so pyridoxine cannot be converted to its active form, that is pyridoxal phosphate, and as a result there will be deficiency of pyridoxine. So how will you treat this patient, peripheral neuritis due to pyridoxine deficiency? Prophylactically, you can give the vitamin B6 tablets, that is 10 to 40 milligram per day. Then those person, elderly person or the person having already liver disease or a alcoholic drinker or fast acetylation. In these patients, there will be more risk of hepatitis. So remember, in slow acetylation patients, you will have risk of peripheral neuritis. In fast acetylation, you will have a risk of hepatitis. This is also risk is more common in elderly 50 to 60 years, patients already having underlying liver disease or an alcoholic drinker. So why there is hepatitis in these patients? There will be fast metabolism of isoniazid and it produces high concentration of hepatotoxic metabolite, that is acetyl isoniazid and acetyl hydrolazine. These are the two hepatotoxic metabolites, acetyl isoniazid, acetyl hydrolazine, and this causes hepatitis in fast acetylation process because there is fast metabolism of isoniazid to these hepatotoxic metabolites, that is isoniazid and acetyl hydrolazine. So the easy way to remember INH side effects is INH. Okay, that is isoniazid. I stands for it is an inducer of lupus reaction. Okay, the main adverse effect of this is peripheral neuritis, hepatotoxicity, and also some person will have systemic lupus erythematosus. And it is an inhibitor of cytochrome P450, cytochrome P450. And N stands for neuropathy, that is peripheral neuropathy because of deficiency of vitamin B6. H stands for hepatotoxicity, which happens because of fast metabolism of isoniazid to acetyl isoniazid and acetyl hydrogel, and it causes hemolysis in G6PD deficiency. So the side effects include systematic lupus reaction, peripheral neuritis, and hepatotoxicity. Now coming to next drug, that is rifampicin. As I already told, rifampicin is nothing but it is a semi-synthetic macrocyclic antibiotic, and the main mechanism is it inhibits the DNA-dependent RNA polymerase enzyme. Rifampicin goes and bind to beta subunit of DNA-dependent RNA polymerase enzyme, and it forms a drug enzyme complex, and then it causes suppression of chain initiation. Okay, it inhibits the RNA polymerase enzyme. So there will be no synthesis of RNA, no protein synthesis, and no cell multiplication. So the bacteria dies. The main side effect of rifampicin is orange discoloration of the urine, sweat, and tears. Okay, all there will be orange discoloration of urine, sweat, and tears. And hepatitis is a major side effect. And cutaneous syndrome you can be seen, that is flushing, pleuritis, and rashes. And flu-like syndrome, which includes fever, headache, and body pain. Next comes the main drug interaction of rifampicin is, it is an enzyme inducer. Okay, it is a microsomal enzyme inducer, that is cytochrome P450 inducer. Remember, isoniazid is an inhibitor of cytochrome P450. This is an inducer of the cytochrome P450 enzymes. So it is an inducer, so it enhances its own metabolism. Along with that, it enhances the metabolism of other drugs, that is oral contraceptive pills, nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors, these are the drugs used for HIV, protease inhibitors, also the drug used for HIV, warfarin, oral anticoagulant, and corticosteroids. That's why if you are giving, if the person having TB, a newly married lady having TB, you should not give rifampicin if the person is taking oral contraceptives, because it enhances the metabolism of oral contraceptives, so it causes therapeutic failure of OCPs and the lady may end in pregnancy. The other uses of rifampicin, other than TB, there are certain other uses, that is, it is used in leprosy along with dapsone, and it is used for meningitis caused by meningococcal and H. influenza, also used for brucellosis in combination with doxycycline and methicillin resistant Staph aureus and Legionella infections. Okay, these are also the very important point for rifampicin, that is other uses: leprosy, meningitis, brucellosis, MRSA, and Legionella infection. Now coming to pyrazinamide, this is also chemically related to isoniazid, and this is the derivative of nicotinamide. Okay, and this is tuberculocidal drug and active only in the acidic medium, that is, they can act only in the intracellular phagocytes, and highly effective in the intracellular mycobacterium, that is in acidic environment of phagocytes. So these drugs acts only in the intracellular acidic medium, that is in the intracellular phagocyte environment it will act. So the main mechanism I already told, pyrazinamide first gets converted to pyraginoic acid with the help of the enzyme Mycobacterial pyrazinamidase. Okay, Mycobacterial pyrazinamidase enzyme, it gets converted to pyraginoic acid, and that inhibits the mycolic acid synthesis. The other mechanism I already told in the diagram, it also interferes with the ATP synthesis. So there will be no generation of the energy and the bacteria dies. The adverse effect is most common is hepatotoxicity, and also it causes hyperuricemia, that is, it increases the uric acid level and it precipitates gouty arthritis, and there is arthralgia. So hepatotoxicity, hyperuricemia, which precipitates gouty arthritis, and arthralgia. These are the main adverse effect of pyrazinamide. Then ethambutol, it is tuberculostatic, okay, not cidal. It is a tuberculostatic, which means it will only retard the growth of the bacteria. It will not kill the rapidly multiplying bacilli, only it will prevent its growth. So it is called tuberculostatic, and it acts against to Mycobacterium TB and also against to Mycobacterium avium complex, okay, and it prevents the development of resistance. So what is the mechanism? As I already told, it inhibits the arabinogalactin synthesis. Okay, arabinogalactin synthesis, and then it inhibits the enzyme, that is arabinosyl transferase. Okay, because it inhibits this Mycobacterium arabinocyte transferase enzyme, there will be no polymerization reaction of arabinoglycan. So there will be no synthesis of arabinoglycan, which was the essential component of Mycobacterial cell wall. So isoniazid inhibits mycolic acid. This inhibits the synthesis of arabinoglycan by inhibiting the enzyme arabinocyte transferase enzyme. And thus, the structural component of Mycobacterial cell wall will not be synthesized and bacteria dies. The main side effects of this ethambutol is loss of visual acuity. Okay, the person will complain of red-green color discrimination. Red-green color discrimination, that is, there will be color blindness, visual field defect. So we have to recognize these symptoms early and stop the drug. So in children less than 6 years of age, this drug is contraindicated because children, if they develop this symptom, they will not be able to communicate. So this is contraindicated in children less than 6 years. And apart from visual field defect or red-green color discrimination, it also inhibits renal uric acid excretion. So it also causes hyperuricemia and gouty arthritis and joint pain, same like pyrazinamide. But the main, you remember that it causes retrobulbar or optic neuritis and red-green color discrimination. So it is contraindicated in children less than 6 years of age. So the first line anti-TB drugs you can remember RIPE, ripe. Okay, ripe fruits like that. So ripe. Rifampin or rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. Next is streptomycin. If you remember the classification, this is the first line supplemental drug which is given only in the injectable form. It is aminoglycoside and it is also tuberculocidal and it acts in the extracellular bacilli. Okay, extracellular bacilli. But the main side effects, if you remember, all aminoglycosides have a common side effect, that is ototoxicity, nephrotoxicity. All aminoglycosides. So streptomycin is an aminoglycoside. So they'll have main side effects, ototoxicity, nephrotoxicity. There can be paralysis, and as we are giving only in the injectable form, there is a chance of sterile abscess. So how to remember the first line drugs? RIPES, rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and the first line supplemental drug, that is streptomycin. All these drugs RIPE given oral route, streptomycin can be given in the injectable form. Not can be, it is always given in the injectable form because it is an aminoglycoside, so high molecular weight quaternary compound. The major side effects of this drug: rifampicin, red-orange color secretions and urine; isoniazid, peripheral neuritis with slow acetylation, and first acetylation will have hepatotoxicities. Pyrazinamide, it causes gouty arthritis because it increases the uric acid level. Ethambutol, EE, remember. Ethambutol, E stands for eyes. So it mostly has visual problems. Streptomycin, which is a first line and antitubercular supplemental drug, it has ototoxicity, nephrotoxicity. Now come to second line drugs. So that completes of first line drugs. RIPE, rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and the streptomycin. Then second line drugs, again this is again classified into injectable, oral. These aminoglycosides are injectable, okay, parenteral. So aminoglycosides, it includes capiromycin, bleomycin, kanamycin. These are the three drugs which are used for second line anti-TB drugs. But these all are least effective and more toxic. Okay, nephrotoxic, ototoxic. So the drugs are capiromycin, bleomycin, kanamycin. All these drugs are given in the parenteral route. Then the next second line, which is given orally, that is cycloserine. It is a broad spectrum. Why it is called broad spectrum? Because it not only acts against Mycobacterium TB, but also it has its effective towards E. coli, Staph aureus, Enterococcus, Chlamydia. So these are the other bacilli which act. So they are called as broad spectrum. Apart from TB, it acts against E. coli, Staph aureus, Enterococcus, Chlamydia. The mechanism of the action is it is an analog of D-alanine synthesis enzyme and blocks the bacterial cell wall synthesis. Okay, it is an analog of D-alanine synthesis enzyme. So it blocks the bacterial cell wall. It is readily absorbed after oral administration and it is excreted unchanged by the kidney. Okay, remember this point. Cycloserine is excreted unchanged by the kidney. So it is mostly helpful for the renal tuberculosis and also in the multi-drug resistant TB and mostly renal TB because it is excreted unchanged by the kidney. Then the next drug is thiacetazone and ethonamide. It is a tuberculostatic drug and both these drugs are low efficacy. It has side effects like hepatitis, optic neuritis and impotence, mental disturbances. Para-aminosalicylic acid is also a second line drug. It is also tuberculostatic and least effective. Para-aminosalicylic acid is a PABA derivative drug. Okay. Mechanism is it inhibits de novo folate synthesis enzyme. It inhibits the folic acid synthesis of the bacteria. As a result, there will be no DNA synthesis and bacteria dies. Adverse effects because it is an PABA derivative, so you will have rashes, fever, liver dysfunction. So these are the second line drugs. Individual drugs will not be asked. In general, if second line is asked, you have to mention all these drugs. So the next second line drugs is rifabutin. Okay, rifabutin. This is a recently developed drug. It is structural analog of the first line drug, that is rifampicin. Okay, it is a structural analog of rifampicin. So it is common with rifampicin in mechanism of the action. If you remember, rifampicin mechanism is it binds with beta subunit of DNA dependent RNA polymerase enzyme and inhibits RNA synthesis. So same mechanism it has. Common spectrum of activities it will have and common mechanism of development of resistance. So what is the difference there compared to rifampicin? Rifampicin is a potent enzyme inducer. Rifabutin is a less potent enzyme inducer. So there will be less drug interaction. And rifabutin compared to rifampicin, it has got better activity against Mycobacterium avium complex. Okay. And also it acts against rifampicin resistant strains such as Mycobacterium leprae and Mycobacterium fortunium. Okay. And compared to rifampicin, it has got longer plasma half-life, that is 48 hours. Okay, 45 hours. So rifabutin is nothing but structural analog of rifampicin. It shares the same mechanism of action, same development of resistance, same spectrum. Only difference is that compared to rifampicin, it has got less potent enzyme inducer of cytochrome P450, so less drug interactions, better activity against Mycobacterium avium complex, and rifampicin resistant strains like Mycobacterium leprae and Mycobacterium fortunium it will act, and it has got the longer plasma half-life, that is 45 hours. The uses, it is used for latent tuberculosis and treatment of Mycobacterium TB in HIV infants and prevention and treatment of Mycobacterium avium complex. So these are the three uses you have to remember: latent TB, Mycobacterium avium complex and TB in the HIV patients. The adverse effects include same like rifampicin, you will have hepatitis and red orange discoloration of the urine. Apart from that, there will be skin reactions and decrease in the neutrophil count, that is called neutropenia. These two adverse effects are same with rifampicin, that is hepatitis and red orange discoloration of urine. Coming to the last second line drugs, that is rifapentin. Okay, rifapentin. This also is an analog of rifampicin, only it is having longer half-life, that is 13 to 15 hours. And rifampicin is an inducer of cytochrome 3a4. Rifapentin is an inhibitor of cytochrome 3a4. Remember the difference. Rifampicin is an inducer. Rifabutin is a less inducer, but rifapentin is an inhibitor. It's inhibitor of cytochrome 3a4. and rifabutin was having longer half-life of 45 hours. This is having the half-life of about 13 to 15 hours. Okay, and it is an inhibitor of cytochrome 3A4. Next comes your fluoroquinolones. This is also a second line drugs, that is ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, levofloxacin and moxifloxacin. These are the fluoroquinolones drugs. Okay, COML. Ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, moxifloxacin and levofloxacin. These are the fluoroquinolones. So it inhibits mostly the susceptible tubercle bacilli of Mycobacterium avium complex and Mycobacterium fortinium. So it acts against susceptible tubercle bacilli and also acts against Mycobacterium avium complex and Mycobacterium fortinium. It has got good penetration. What makes these drugs more popular drugs in second line? Means it has got good penetration into the cells. It has convenient dosage schedule and good tolerability. Okay, that is the side effects are very minimal. Good tolerability, convenient dosage schedule and good penetration to the cells. So that makes them more effective, and it can be used for multi-drug resistant TB and Mycobacterium avium complex infection in HIV/AIDS. So remember, the fluoroquinolones is effective COML. Ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, moxifloxacin, levofloxacin. And what makes them more effective towards the susceptible tubercle bacilli and Mycobacterium avium complex, and also it can be used in multi-drug resistant TB because it has got good penetration into the cell, has got convenient dose schedule and good tolerability. So comes to the newer anti-TB drugs, that is linezolid. This has been recently been found to be very effective against both drug susceptible and drug resistant TB. Okay, and it is used as a major component of multi-drug regimen in patients with drug resistant TB. Adverse effects is it causes bone marrow suppression and peripheral neuropathy, which may be irreversible. That's why it causes bone marrow suppression. So the person taking linezolid, you have to do weekly the blood platelet count because it causes thrombocytopenia. Okay, and peripheral neuropathy also is a major side effect of linezolid. Next, newer anti-TB drug is bedaquiline. Okay, bedaquiline. This is a diaryl quinoline derivative. Okay, chemically it is a diaryl quinoline derivative. The main mechanism is in this diagram. This is Mycobacterial ATP synthesis. Okay, ADP combines with inorganic phosphate and ATP is synthesized. And this is the transmembrane disc. Okay, transmembrane disc. This rotates. There is a rotation of a transmembrane disc. This rotates and there is release of the ATP molecule. And in this way, bacteria generates the energy. So what does the bedaquiline does? It inhibits the ATP synthesis enzyme. Okay, that is adenosine 5' triphosphate. ATP synthesis enzyme it inhibits the protein pump of Mycobacterium and interferes with the rotation properties of transmembrane disc. So it decreases the ATP synthesis. Bedaquiline decreases the ATP synthesis. How? By inhibiting directly the ATP synthesis enzyme, and secondly, it inhibits this rotation properties of transmembrane disc. So as the disc will not rotate, the ATP will not be synthesized. So the bacteria will not be able to generate the energy and the bacteria dies. So remember, the main mechanism of bedaquiline is by inhibits ATP synthesis and also it inhibits the rotation of a transmembrane disc. Then coming to pharmacokinetics of bedaquiline, it is orally given, rapidly absorbed, and distribution is more than 99% protein bound. Because it is highly protein bound, it has got the terminal half-life of 5 months. Okay, because it is highly protein bound drug, so the terminal half-life is 5 months. it gets metabolized by cytochrome 3A4 enzyme. What is the dose? You have to give 400 milligram daily. First 2 weeks, you have to start with 400 milligram daily, and then next you have to give half the dose, that is 200 milligram 3 times a week. Okay, per week 3 times you have to give. When you are giving 3 times, you have to remember that between the doses there should be maximum of 48 hours gap. Okay, so first 2 weeks give 400 milligram daily for first 2 weeks, and the next week per week you have to give 3 times 200 milligram 3 times daily per week, and that you have to continue for about 22 weeks. Okay, with food. So the black box warning in this drug is it causes prolongation of QTC interval. Okay, and hepatotoxicity. It causes prolongation of QTC interval and hepatotoxicity. The next anti-TB drug is dilamanid. Okay, dilamanid. This is also a drug which has been indicated for pulmonary multi-drug resistant TB, both in adult and adolescents. That is 6 to 17 years of age. It belongs to nitroimidazole group. So what is the mechanism? It blocks the synthesis of mycolic acid by poisoning them with nitric oxide, which the drugs release when metabolized. So when you take these drugs, it gets metabolized and it releases nitric oxide, and that inhibits the mycolic acid synthesis of bacterial cell wall. The half-life of this drug is 36 hours. Okay. Sorry. The half-life of this drug is 36 hours and it belongs to nitroimidazole derivative. It blocks the synthesis of mycolic acid by poisoning with nitric oxide. See, so dilamanid, see, this is a mycolic acid. Normally, in bacterial cell wall, there will be synthesis of the mycolic acid, and this mycolic acid enters the bacterial cell wall through the transport protein that is called MMPL3, that is mycobacterial membrane protein Las 3. Okay, mycobacterial membrane protein Las 3. So this is the membrane protein. So after the synthesis of mycolic acid, it enters through this transport and goes inside the bacterial cell wall. So dilamanid inhibits this mycolic acid biosynthesis. As a result, the mycolic acid will not be getting transported to the bacterial cell wall and bacteria dies. So dilamanid is available in 50 milligram tablets, and so you have to give dose is 100 milligram, that is 2 tablets. Each tablet contains 50 milligram. So 100 milligram tablets you have to give 2 times a day. Okay, 2 times a day daily for 24 weeks. That is, the course is about 6 months. Okay, 6 months, 24 weeks you have to continue this drug, and you have to give 100 milligram. That is 2 tablets. Each tablet has 50 milligram. So 2 tablets, 100 milligram, 2 times a day. Okay, 2 times they have to take 100 milligram daily for 24 weeks. It can be given with other drugs for the treatment of multi-drug resistant TB. The side effects, nausea, vomiting, dizziness will be there, and same like bedaquiline, this also prolongs the QTC interval. Okay, the treatment part I'll tell in the next class. So right now you remembered all the drugs of the first line drugs, so which includes HRZDS. Okay, that is RIPES, RIPES, rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol. All these first line drugs are given oral. Only the first line drugs which is given in injectable form, that is streptomycin. That is first line supplemental drug. Then again comes to second line drugs, again is divided into oral and injectable. So the oral drugs of second line includes all fluoroquinolones, cycloserine, ethonamide, para-aminosalicylic acid. Okay, in second line injectable drugs you will have only aminoglycosides, kanamycin, capiromycin and amikacin, diomycin. Okay, and then the next newer drugs includes the 3 main drugs: linezolid, bedaquiline, dilamanid. The other drugs, as I told you, clarithromycin, rifampicin, rifabutin. Okay, these are also the newer drugs. Thank you.